here, or breathe here, you know. And then I realized I could also breathe here. And I knew where my focus would be. I would breathe in that area. I could breathe into every pore of my body and breathe out every pore of my body. I could breathe into another person. I could breathe into the pillar over there. I could breathe into the trees. I could breathe into anything. And so I could begin doing Tonglen, a Tibetan Buddhist breath practice, to heal other beings very easily through everything. Where I believed that the space in between the breath was something to be observed, that was a very special place that allowed energy to pass through very clearly. That was really one of the big magics within the healing. I originally started it by trying to breathe in the energy of a woman that was being accosted by the police in the way I had seen it. Of course, she was surely doing something wrong. There was good reason for them to be there. But either way, I prayed for healing through the breath with her that day. And that began a huge opening in myself in a giant way. So even though I don't have a lot of intention to breathe in that way in a certain manner, and focusing it in the way that I did before, through breathing it in as golden light, transmuting it in my stomach, and breathing it back out, that transmutated energy to the other being. Now I breathe, and the breath just does the whole thing on its own. And so, through my relaxing of the breath, softening of the gaze of the breath now breathes deep into the stomach and everywhere else on its own, and I follow the breath wherever it wants to go. So if it breathes into the leg, the leg may have movement. If it breathes into the foot may have movement. If it breathes into the arm may have movement. If it breathes into the side might have movement. And once it breathes into that point, it may breathe very rapidly through a lot of different systems, causing a ridiculous oscillation of motion and a whole lot of different movement. And I may call that whole motion a chord shape, depending on what it is that's happening and how fast the occurrence of its happening is. But each one of those little points, each one moving to the next, I would call that like a syllable structure, the following of a beat. But it's really the breath doing the entire thing. So as I step out of my way with the light language and with the motion, it really begins to feel as if all I'm doing is breathing. And the rest of the stuff is happening and I'm aware of it. And yeah, my body's a thing moving and stuff. It feels like that. And it feels like I'm doing things in a certain way. But it just becomes to a point where it's just the breath. And the breath itself becomes small and powerful. Now it may be long in its smallness, but every one of the very tiniest of its motions is now a very powerful spurt within the entire body as it oscillates itself to greater and greater distinctions. The breath can breathe literally inwards infinitely and outwards infinitely. It can recycle itself, get to the very end of its breath, and then add more breath to itself, and then add more breath to itself, and then add more breath to itself. And so in this way, this practice and this noticing would be transparent, or it would be showing very accurately, being in alignment with somebody's realization and understanding coming into place, with being able to see that the breath itself is leading in a way that doesn't need to be guided by the self. I've lost the channel for some reason. I don't know what happened. Something occurred there. Do you know where we were going?
Just talking about breathing into, like breathing limitlessly.
Infinitely in one direction, infinitely out the other direction. So this would be Oh, okay, we got caught on a word. Transcending the limitations of the mind. And so the mind believes that it has inhibitions, or it has inhibitor chips, it has limitations. And if the mind can transcend these limitations authentically, naturally, spontaneously, and not through force cannot do this. You cannot force this. Force creates the opposite energy or reverberation. It is too subtle for force. This will take trust and surrender and allowance. So this is something that just has to happen. So if you're somebody that wishes to force something to make happen, just know now it can't. And so you've already defeated yourself in your wish to force something, and so it cannot happen, and you cannot make it happen, and you've defeated yourself in your knowledge of this, and so you might as well just give up, because as long as you don't, it'll never work. And as long as you're trying to give up to make it work, it'll never work.